Thomas Harper stood at the edge of his small cottage, watching the gray Devon sky blend with the misty landscape. At 35, he had become a master of invisibility, blending into the background of life, noticed by few, connected to almost no one. His work as a maintenance engineer for the local industrial park was steady, but uninspiring, a job that filled time but never his heart. Every morning followed the same routine. Wake up at 5:30, make a simple breakfast of toast and tea, pack a plain lunch in a worn-out canvas bag, and drive his aging pickup truck to work. The village knew him as the quiet man who lived alone, rarely spoke to anyone, and seemed content in his solitude. But solitude was a mask. Beneath his calm exterior, Thomas carried deep wounds. His marriage had ended 5 years ago, a painful divorce that left him believing he was somehow unworthy of genuine connection. Sarah, his ex-wife, had left without much explanation, taking with her any remaining confidence he had in forming meaningful relationships. The winter morning was colder than usual. Frost covered the fields surrounding his cottage, creating a crystal-like landscape that sparkled under the weak morning light. Thomas decided to take a different walking route, something he rarely did. His usual path through the village felt suffocating, with pitying looks from neighbors who whispered about his lonely existence. Today he walked towards the abandoned quarry, a place most locals avoided. Old machinery, rusted equipment, and overgrown vegetation created an almost mystical landscape. Thomas found comfort in abandoned spaces, places forgotten by the world, much like he felt he had been forgotten. As he walked, a strange sound caught his attention. It wasn't the typical woodland noise, not a bird's chirp or a rabbit's rustle. This was different. A low, rhythmic sound that seemed to pulse with pain and desperation. His practical engineer's mind initially suggested checking it out was risky. But something deeper, a compassion he had long buried, pushed him forward. Pushing through dense brambles and thorny bushes, Thomas moved carefully, following the sound. The scene that greeted him was unexpected. A large, powerful creature lay trapped between fallen rocks and tangled vegetation. Its breathing was labored, and Thomas could see it was female and pregnant. Her eyes, unlike any animal he had ever seen, held an intelligence that seemed almost human. For a moment, Thomas and the creature locked eyes. In that instant, something shifted. The loneliness that had defined his existence for years seemed to crack, just slightly. He approached slowly, speaking in soft, calm tones. "It's okay," he murmured. "I'm not going to hurt you." His hands, usually used to fixing machinery, now moved with unexpected gentleness. The creature watched him, not with fear but with a strange recognition. Thomas realized he was witnessing something extraordinary, a moment of pure, unexpected connection. Using skills he had developed from years of mechanical work, Thomas carefully assessed the situation. He would need to move rocks, create space, and ensure the creature's safety. This was no longer just a random encounter. This had become a rescue mission. As he worked, Thomas felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Purpose. The cold morning seemed to fade away. His usual reservations dissolved, and all that remained was a fundamental human desire to help. He didn't know it then, but this moment would transform everything. The lonely engineer who had constructed walls around his heart was about to embark on a journey that would challenge everything he believed about connection, family, and belonging. The creature's labored breathing, the frost-covered landscape, the abandoned quarry, all seemed to hold their breath, waiting for what would happen next. Thomas Harper, the man who had mastered the art of being invisible, was about to become remarkably visible. The universe, it seemed, had other plans for him. The end, Thomas carefully transported the injured creature to his cottage, his pickup truck moving slowly over the rough country roads. The animal lay wrapped in his sturdy work jacket, breathing heavily. Something about its presence felt different. Not just another wild animal, but something more. Back at his cottage, Thomas prepared a warm space near the old fireplace. He laid down clean blankets, boiled water, and gathered his basic first aid supplies. His hands, usually skilled at repairing machinery, now moved with unexpected gentleness. The creature was clearly a female, and her condition was critical. Thomas could see she was pregnant, very pregnant. Her breaths came in short, painful gasps. He remembered helping farmers with animal births during his younger years, a skill he thought he'd never use again. Hours passed. Thomas spoke softly, his voice a gentle comfort. "You're safe now," he would whisper, dabbing her wounds with warm water and clean cloths. The creature seemed to understand, her eyes holding a depth of intelligence that confused and fascinated him. As night fell, the cottage became a place of unexpected tension. Thomas sat vigilantly, watching the creature. Her breathing changed, became more rhythmic, more intense. He recognized the signs immediately. She was about to give birth. The birth was unlike anything Thomas had ever witnessed. The creature moved with a grace that seemed almost impossible, her movements calculated despite her pain. Thomas assisted carefully, using everything he knew about careful handling and support. One by one, 7 offspring emerged. They were unlike any animals Thomas had ever seen. Each was unique, different patterns, slightly different sizes, but all sharing a remarkable similarity in their eyes. Those eyes seemed to hold something more than just animal intelligence. The first offspring turned directly towards Thomas. Its gaze was not just a look, it was a connection. Thomas felt a shiver run down his spine. These were not ordinary creatures. Something extraordinary was happening. The mother creature looked at Thomas with an expression that transcended animal communication. It was a look of pure gratitude, of recognition. She seemed to understand that he had saved her and her children. As the night progressed, Thomas prepared food and water. The creatures ate carefully, watching him with curious eyes. They moved, with a coordination that seemed impossible for newborns. Each seemed to communicate with the others through subtle movements and what appeared to be some form of silent communication. Thomas's cottage, once a symbol of his loneliness, now buzzed with unexpected life. The fireplace crackled, the creatures nestled close together, and Thomas sat watching, his heart feeling something he hadn't felt in years, a sense of purpose. He knew the challenges would be immense. How would he care for these creatures? What were they? Where did they come from? The local authorities, the wildlife experts? They would have questions. Difficult questions. But for now, in this moment, none of that mattered. Thomas had saved a life. No, multiple lives. His world of machinery and isolation had been replaced by something warm, something alive. The mother creature seemed to sense his thoughts. She moved closer, placing herself and her offspring near Thomas. It was a gesture of trust, of protection. In that moment, Thomas understood that he was no longer just a lonely maintenance engineer. He was a protector, a guardian. As dawn broke, casting soft light through the cottage windows, Thomas realized his life had changed forever. The quiet, predictable existence he had known was gone. Something new, something unexpected had arrived, and he was ready. The 7 offspring watched Thomas, their eyes holding a story he was yet to understand. But one thing was clear: they saw him not as a stranger, but as something more. As family, the end. The news spread quickly in the small Devon village. Thomas Harper, the quiet maintenance engineer who rarely spoke to anyone, had somehow acquired 7 unusual creatures living in his cottage. Rumors began to swirl like autumn, leaves caught in the wind. Dr. Emily Roberts, the local veterinarian, was the first professional to investigate. She arrived one crisp morning, her medical bag in hand, and professional skepticism written across her face. Thomas met her at the door, looking both nervous and protective. "I need to see them," she said firmly, her voice carrying the authority of years of veterinary experience. Thomas hesitated. The creatures had become more than just animals to him. They were his family now. Each day they demonstrated abilities that defied normal animal behavior. They seemed to understand complex instructions, helped with household chores, and communicated through an intricate system of movements and subtle sounds. The mother creature watched Dr. Roberts carefully, her protective instincts clearly visible. The 7 offspring huddled together, their eyes following every movement in the room. Dr. Roberts was stunned. These were no ordinary animals. "What are they?" she asked, her professional demeanor slipping momentarily. Thomas explained what little he knew. He had found them injured, rescued them, and they had somehow bonded with him. The creatures seemed to understand human language far beyond typical animal comprehension. Local authorities became interested. A wildlife officer named Mark Thompson began making regular visits. Questions multiplied. Where did these creatures come from? Were they dangerous? Should they be studied? Thomas became their shield. He knew that scientific curiosity could easily turn into a threat. The creatures trusted him, looked to him for protection. He would not let them become laboratory specimens. He modified his cottage, creating special spaces for the creatures. He built secure enclosures, developed unique feeding strategies, and learned their complex communication patterns. Each day brought new discoveries. The village began to take sides. Some saw Thomas as a local hero, protecting mysterious creatures. Others viewed him with suspicion, whispering about potential dangers. Children would peek over fences. Adults would discuss the strange situation in local pubs. Dr. Roberts became an unexpected ally. Her scientific curiosity transformed into genuine protection. She understood these creatures were extraordinary and deserved safety. She helped Thomas navigate the complex legal and scientific challenges. The creatures continued to amaze Thomas. They helped with gardening, seemed to understand complex household tasks, and displayed an emotional intelligence that was remarkable. They would comfort Thomas during moments of stress, sensing his emotions with an uncanny ability. Weeks turned into months. The creatures grew, their abilities becoming more pronounced. Thomas's life of isolation had transformed completely. He was no longer alone. He had a family, an unusual family, but a family nonetheless. The mother creature seemed to understand the challenges they faced. She would often look at Thomas with an expression that suggested deep gratitude and understanding. The offspring watched and learned, their bond with Thomas growing stronger each day. Local wildlife experts wanted to study them. Government officials made inquiries, but Thomas stood firm. These were not specimens. They were living beings who deserved respect and protection. His cottage, once a symbol of loneliness, now represented hope. A hope that connection could come from the most unexpected places. That family wasn't about blood or species, but about trust, love, and mutual understanding. As winter approached, Thomas knew the real challenges were just beginning. But for the first time in years, he felt ready. The creatures had given him something precious, a sense of purpose. They were more than just rescued animals. They were his family, and he would protect them at all costs. The end Thomas's life had transformed completely. The 7 creatures he rescued were growing rapidly, displaying abilities that continued to amaze him. What started as a simple rescue had become something extraordinary. Each morning began with a remarkable routine. The creatures would help Thomas with household chores. They seemed to understand complex instructions better than most trained dogs. When Thomas prepared breakfast, they would quietly clean the kitchen. When he worked in the garden, they assisted in planting, moving tools, and caring for the plants. The village had slowly accepted this unusual situation. Children would peek over the fence, their curiosity growing. Local residents who once whispered about the strange man and his mysterious creatures now looked with wonder and respect. Dr. Emily Roberts continued to visit, documenting their incredible abilities. She discovered that the creatures communicated through a complex system of subtle movements, sounds, and what seemed like a form of telepathic connection. Thomas was at the center of their communication network. One particularly cold morning, something extraordinary happened. Thomas was feeling unwell, a bad cold that left him weak and exhausted. The creatures sensed his condition immediately. They worked together with remarkable coordination, bringing him blankets, preparing warm tea, and maintaining the cottage. The mother creature, whom Thomas had quietly named Luna, seemed to understand human emotions on a profound level. She would sit close to him, her presence providing comfort beyond physical warmth. The younger creatures would take turns watching over him, ensuring he was comfortable. Local farmers began to notice Thomas's unique companions. They were surprised to see how the creatures helped with various tasks. During harvest season, they assisted in moving equipment, gathering crops, and completing tasks that would typically require multiple workers. Thomas's loneliness had completely disappeared. His cottage was now a home filled with life, sound, and an unexplained connection. The creatures had become more than just rescued animals. They were family. Their abilities continued to surprise everyone. They could anticipate Thomas's needs before he expressed them. If he was thinking about a specific tool, one of the creatures would bring it to him. If he was feeling stressed, they would create a calm environment, moving quietly and providing silent support. The local community's perception of Thomas changed dramatically. Once seen as the quiet, isolated man at the edge of the village, he was now viewed as someone special. People would stop him in the local shop, asking about his unusual family. Dr. Roberts's scientific documentation became increasingly fascinating. The creatures demonstrated problem-solving skills that rivaled those of advanced primates. They could understand complex instructions, work as a team, and display emotional intelligence that seemed impossible for non-human creatures. As months passed, Thomas realized these creatures had given him something he had lost years ago, a sense of purpose. His divorce, his years of isolation, the pain of feeling disconnected, all seemed like distant memories now. The younger creatures were becoming increasingly independent. They would explore the surrounding areas, always returning home. Their bond with Thomas remained strong, but they were developing their own identities. Luna, the mother creature, watched everything with a sense of quiet pride. She seemed to understand that Thomas had not just rescued them. He had become their protector, their guardian, their family. Winter approached, bringing challenges. But Thomas was no longer afraid. The creatures had taught him about resilience, about unexpected connections, about the true meaning of family. His cottage, once a symbol of loneliness, now represented hope. A hope that life could change in an instant. That family could come from the most unexpected places. As snow began to fall outside, Thomas looked at his unique family. Luna and her offspring gathered around him, their eyes reflecting a bond that transcended species, language, and understanding. He was no longer alone. He was home. The end. The final chapter of Thomas Harper's extraordinary journey was about to unfold. Spring had arrived, bringing new life and unexpected possibilities to the quiet Devon village. Dr. Emily Roberts had been working tirelessly to understand and protect Thomas's unique family. Her research had attracted the attention of wildlife, conservation experts who saw these creatures as something beyond scientific classification. They were intelligent beings that challenged everything humans understood about animal communication and social structures. The local community had fully embraced Thomas and his unusual companions. Children would visit, bringing small gifts. Farmers would offer extra produce. The once isolated maintenance engineer had become a local legend, a man who had discovered a connection that went beyond human understanding. Luna, the mother creature, continued to amaze everyone. She seemed to have an almost supernatural ability to understand human emotions. When local children were sad or scared, she would approach them gently, offering comfort through subtle movements and a presence that seemed to radiate understanding. The 7 offspring had grown into remarkable beings. They worked together with an incredible sense of teamwork, helping Thomas maintain his cottage and small plot of land. They could anticipate needs before they were expressed, move objects with precise coordination, and communicate in ways that defied scientific explanation. A breakthrough came unexpectedly. A research team from a prestigious wildlife conservation center arrived, interested in studying the creatures. But unlike previous encounters, this team approached with respect and genuine curiosity. They saw what Thomas had always known. These were not just animals to be studied, but intelligent beings to be understood. Thomas found himself at the center of something much larger than his small cottage. His story of rescue and unexpected family had captured the imagination of people far beyond the Devon village. Journalists wanted to interview him. Scientists wanted to understand the creatures, but Thomas remained protective. Luna seemed to understand the complexities of their situation. She would often sit close to Thomas, her presence a constant reminder of the journey they had shared. The younger creatures continued to develop, showing increasingly sophisticated problem-solving skills and emotional intelligence. The village had completely transformed its view of Thomas. Once seen as the quiet, lonely man at the edge of town, he was now viewed as a guardian, a protector of something extraordinary. Local children would tell stories about the man and his amazing creatures, turning their tale into local folklore. Summer approached. Thomas realized how much his life had changed. The isolation that had defined his existence for years had been replaced by a rich, complex life, filled with unexpected connections. Luna and her offspring had given him more than just companionship. They had given him purpose. Dr. Roberts continued to document their abilities, creating a scientific record that would challenge everything known about animal intelligence. The creatures displayed problem-solving skills, emotional depth, and a form of communication that went far beyond traditional understanding. One quiet evening, as the sun set over the Devon landscape, Thomas looked at his unique family. Luna sat. Nearby, her offspring scattered around the cottage, some helping with evening chores, others quietly observing the world around them. He realized that family wasn't about species or origin. It was about connection, trust, and love. The local community had become their extended family. Farmers would wave as Thomas walked through the village. Children would smile and call out greetings. The creatures had become a symbol of something special, a reminder that connections can come from the most unexpected places. Thomas's journey from a lonely maintenance engineer to a guardian of extraordinary beings was complete. He had found something he had lost years ago: hope. Hope that life could surprise you. Hope that family could come in the most unexpected forms. As night fell, the cottage glowed with warmth and life. Luna moved closer to Thomas, her presence a constant reminder of their incredible journey. The younger creatures settled down, another day of discovery and connection coming to an end. Thomas Harper was no longer alone. He was home. He was family. The end.